mean, that's how long it's been since I've been
yeah.
there. So,
I guess that's where we did have our hearings during COVID.
uh-huh. And I thought, oh, this isn't good. Guess who I'm gonna have to call? But luckily I pulled what I had printed and saw. Okay. No Julia?
No. It's just the three of you this evening.
Oh, gee.
I know summer hearings are hard with vacations and things
Yes.
like that. Okay.
7 o'clock.
Just
Okay.
one moment while I verify that the webcast is. Okay, we are live.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Wagner, and I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Board of Zoning Appeals for City of Frostburg. It is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023. First, let's do a roll call. Julia Williams, not here. Connie Lux.
Here.
Brian Alderton, not here. Tom Bachman, not here. Kevin Wagner, hello, me. And Kitty Davis is present. All right. So we have a quorum. All right. Would everybody please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, tonight we're going to hear case number 2618 at 101 Bowery Street. It is a variance from the sign regulations. This public hearing of the Frostburg Board of Zoning Appeals, as advertised in local newspapers, to be held at the Frostburg Municipal Center located at 37 Broadway on Wednesday, August 2nd at 7 p.m. pursuant to Section 1.18 of the Frostburg Zoning Ordinance is now in session. Board members present are Connie Lux, Kitty Davis, and Kevin Wagner. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of hearing the appeal of owner First Congregational Church, who is requesting approval of a variance in regard to electronic messaging center use in the C1 University Corridor / mixed use district. Pursuant to 7.7.B2 of the Frostburg Zoning Ordinance, which states, all appeals and variances regarding the terms of this Part 7 of the zoning ordinance shall be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Meeting procedure is as follows. When you are called to testify, please come forward, state your name and address, and proceed with your testimony. While testimony is being presented, other persons present will refrain from interrupting. Only testimony of persons recognized by the chair will have any bearing on the decision of the board. Decisions made by the Board of Appeals may be appealed to the Circuit Court for Allegheny County, 30 Washington Street, Cumberland, Maryland. Testimony will now be taken from persons, agents, or counsel who have indicated their desire to testify. So I think we have the representative from First Congregational Church, so if you would stand and we can swear you in. Do you solemnly declare or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please.
My name is Pastor Ken Hamilton. My home address is 72 Reservoir Lane, Ridgely, West Virginia.
Thank you. All right, so feel free to present your case.
Okay. Bethany, if you have there we go. First of all, I want to thank you for letting us present this. It is very important to First Congregational Church. If you go, please. As you can see, this is what happened to the windstorm in March that also took the side off of the Frostburg Fire Department, we experienced this. We would like to believe that it was the wind and not some other force or forces that took it down. Please. I took this last Sunday as a picture from the front of the church. I was standing about 3/4 of the way across the street because I fully understand your concern as far as the brightness of the sign in the C1 area. So you can see where the welcome sign or flag is, where you have placed your zoning flag. That is the exact location that the new sign would be erected in. This is a mock-up done by Western Maryland Signs for us of the way the sign will look in its place. And we will get into the details. It's actually back, I think, a little bit behind this part of the front porch. So if you go to the next one, you'll see that it's well back away from the road. It will be facing the road, so there's no distraction to drivers or blinding light if that were to be a concern, which once we get into the nighttime illumination, we'll see that it really is not a concern. So coming up the street, it will not obstruct the corner as far as people pulling out, and it will not cause any type of light blinding or distraction because it is facing towards the highway and not facing down the street. Please. The old sign was illuminated by 6 25-watt LED bulbs at 230 to 300 lumens per bulb for a total of about 1,800 lumens. If you go, please. This is a picture of the old sign when it was up, so that you have a reference as far as sizing. And please. The new sign, the daylight illumination, the brightness is 7,000 nits. That's the way the company gave it to us. So we converted it over to lumens, and it's about 23,982 lumens for a daytime illumination. Please. Nighttime illumination it drops down to 700 automatically. We do not have to do that manually. It will drop to that level, which puts it about 2,398 lumens. The average street light is 5,000 lumens. So this will not be as bright as the street lights on the corners down there. And I don't know what the lumens is of the lamp posts that were placed on Bowery Street, but I do know they do a pretty good job of illuminating the street. Please. So the average street light lumens varies depending on the street lighting application. For residential, it runs around 5,000. When you get into parking lot, like up at FSU, it goes up between 6,400 and 18,000 lumens. And you can see how far out of an area that one street light will cover. The electronic sign that we're asking for, because it's LED and they measure it differently in a luminescence of how the light shines on a surface, it will not light up the houses across the street. Okay. The nighttime illumination is approximately that of about a 50-watt tungsten bulb. So in reality, the floodlights we have on the corner of the church are brighter than this sign is going to be. And that is my presentation. If you have any questions?
Thank you. Gibby or Connie, do you have any questions, follow-up questions?
I just have one question. Does it have to have a lot stronger lumens in the daytime
It
to be
does.
visible?
Yeah, that's why I think it was 7,000 during the day, drops to 700 at night. So during the day, you're not really going to perceive that. It's if you look at the Baptist Church in LaVale, just put one up, and if you drive by during the day, it doesn't smack you in the face. It's just bright enough that you can read it.
Okay.
Any more questions? Gibby?
No, thank you.
I don't don't really have any questions either. Like I said earlier, I watched the Planning Commission presentation, and I guess they had some questions about the lumens. So I appreciate you going into more detail and doing comparisons. That was very helpful. I even learned some things. I didn't even know what a nit was. You know, did you know what a nit was?
I didn't either. So I got on and
It went
Googled a
for it.
conversion chart and found something would convert it over to lumens, which my mind conceives better than a nit.
Okay.
I guess I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It's going to change during the day, right?
is.
And at night, you'll have different messages and be able to announce
It
things.
can be done remotely, so I can be on vacation and change the message on the sign.
Wow.
Okay.
Anyone else? Connie? Kitty?
Anything?
I can't think of anything either. Well, I think that's it. Pastor Ken, thank you very much for your presentation. I guess at this time, we'll move on down to the presentation of the Planning Commission review. So our staff member, Bethany Fife.
Sure. On July 12th of last month, the Planning Commission considered this proposal, and they did approve a favorable recommendation to this board. They did stipulate that the EMC that's installed, if approved, that it abide by the regulations that are set forth in the C2 zoning district. So in the back of your packet, I apologize that they don't have page numbers, but if you go to section 7.5, Development Standards, Section C, that pertains to electronic message and changeable copy signs. And you'll see the chart on the next page where it details the regulations for the C2 district. So the Planning Commission has recommended that the motion limitation be limited to a 4-second minimum. The size limitation, it would, the EMC would comprise up to 30% of the total sign area, and 70% max percentage of a single sign.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany. Anything else?
If I may add, at this juncture, I did not receive any opposition from
Okay.
any neighboring property owners. However, I did receive phone calls from 2 neighboring property owners who said that they had no issue
Oh, that's good to
with
know.
this sign being installed in their
Excellent.
neighborhood.
And Bethany, can you remind us, I'm just not well versed in all the different districts. What is the C2 district again?
That is the highway commercial district.
Okay.
So that would be, other portions. You can see the zoning map on the back of your binder, but if you think of where the Frostburg Plaza sheets, the Somerset Trust building, that little corridor right there would also
Okay.
be C2.
But nothing residential.
Correct.
So what we're doing in essence is taking this residential district and permitting something that is allowed in a commercial district.
So is this C1 or C2?
Well, it is C1, but the Planning Commission recommendation is that you treat
use
it as a
C2.
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 Yeah.
Yes, and if I may also note, the C2, I believe, has the most strict
Okay.
regulations for
Okay.
this type of sign, so that's why they made that decision.
Right.
And the motion limitation is just a moving sign, or or?
That would be how quickly one image can change to
Okay.
another image.
Okay.
Or, if the text on the screen were to scroll or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Bethany, Katie, or Connie? Okay. All right, well, thank you, Bethany. Appreciate that. Like you said, we don't have any documented opponents to this case, and nobody seems to be present to oppose it. So we will move on now to 4.6 of the agenda, presentation rebuttal, which again we can skip over because there's nothing to rebuttal against, and if you all have, I'll give you one more opportunity to ask any questions if you thought of something before we go into executive session.
Well, I will we figure out what kind of sign and what the details are
Yeah.
when we're in executive session?
Well,
Because that was, when I read it over, I was not sure what I was exactly where the.
are you talking about like section 1.18 that?
It's like, is it a freestanding sign? Is it a, because there seems to be,
We consider EMC signs to be separate from freestanding, although they may be freestanding in nature.
Seems to be a different section altogether, section C
Yes.
down here. Did you see that?
oh,
Below freestanding is B. C is electronic messaging, changeable copy signs. Yeah, it should.
I think I got this all messed up.
Well, you can always go back to your
go-
binder if you want, you know. What are you trying to find, the variance section?
No, I'm going to.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no other questions from the board, are you good?
I think.
Okay. We'll go into executive session now and discuss the findings, conclusions, and conditions. All right. So, like I said, I had a chance to watch the video, so I felt pretty good, well prepared, and heard the planning commission comments about it. And I feel good about the addressing of the brightness. So I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to discuss regarding that, but if you'd like, we can just start going through the elements sort of for being able to approve a variance, if you're comfortable with that. All right. Because I also like the planning commission's recommendation that they're going to at least treat it as a C2. So, they'll still have some pretty strict requirements there. And it's going to meet the square footage requirements and all that kind of stuff. I double checked that earlier too. So anyway, in section 1.18 C4 of the Frostburg zoning ordinance, this is where we get into variance section. So I'll read it. Variances to authorize upon appeal in specific cases such variances from the terms of this ordinance where owning to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance would result in practical difficulty. So in other words, this is zone C1, and it's pretty clear they're not allowed in C1. So we're trying to see if we can squeeze it into that sort of C2 allowance under the variance. So in item A here, a variance from the terms of this ordinance shall not be granted until the applicant has demonstrated each of the following. 1, special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar or unique to the land, structure, or building involved in a manner different from the nature of the surrounding properties, such that the peculiarity, I struggle with that word, or uniqueness causes this ordinance to impact disproportionately on the applicant's property. So has the applicant demonstrated that? We saw kind of how the church is situated. It's next to a parking lot. We have a stair steps that's coming down. It is providing blockage. He also showed that the brightness of this is not going to be, going super far around surrounding property. So any other comments or questions about the first one here?
Well, there had been a sign there. And
There was
it
a
had
sign.
been lighted.
That's right. But the difference is that now it's just electronic. That's one thing I forgot to ask is if it was illuminated previously. Do you remember?
Yeah, he
It was? Okay.
well, it
The
was-
old sign, if it had like a light bulb in it or something.
Yeah,
Yes, that
mentioned-
was included.
Yeah,
Okay,
He mentioned
Sorry.
the lumens.
And all right, so I feel comfortable with that one. Number 2, the peculiarity or uniqueness of the special conditions or circumstances relate to inherent characteristics of the subject property, which are not shared by neighboring properties. For example, shape, topography, subsurface conditions, environmental factors, historical significance, access or non-access to navigable waters, practical restrictions imposed by abutting properties, such as obstructions and bearing and party walls or other similar restrictions. So this is kind of a unique area. It's transitional. There is that commercial property across the street that actually this board heard a case for, if you remember. It's been a while now, but so that's there. And yeah, there are some rental properties in that area, but it is unique and special. Any comments or concerns about that? Number 3, literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance.
I figure that's why they gave us the C2.
Yeah, well, I don't have a good handle on the C1 district and what other churches or signage there is in the area.
It said
But
no.
what's that?
I thought it said no. So-
Yeah, I mean, they're not allowed, but I'm saying, if there's other unique conditions, but yeah, you're right. We want to treat this as a C2. But literal interpretation of the C1 district would deprive the applicant of rights enjoyed by those other types of properties.
By treating it as a C2 for the first time, are we then setting precedent for the remainder of that C1 district? We have granted one, how do we then refuse?
That's good. I wondered about that.
Once you set precedent, you can't take it back. That's my only concern.
Mhm.
This is a totally residential neighborhood that we're viewing this one property as commercial, which is what we're doing by calling it a C2.
I agree with you, but we do have, it's at a crossroad, number one. And number two, there is a commercial property adjacent to it, that beach lot sand bar, what is that
Okay.
called now?
Got you?
Yeah, and there are street lights, kind of in the vicinity as well.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying, and there are some
And I think
residential
you
to the
should
side.
Keep that in mind, because
Yeah.
once you open that door,
Right.
I think this is going to be more of an issue as time goes on anyway, because we're going to LEDs.
And technology is changing too
Yeah.
with the signage and lighting and
Yeah.
everything, So
I
that
know.
might be something to consider for the city, to look at future.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. He put the bulbs what it was. Thank you.
So, I mean, I think, and it's not a historic district, right?
Okay.
And that's what our churches run into.
All right.
yes.
So let's move on down to 4. The special conditions or circumstances did not result from the actions of the applicant. So, they didn't necessarily create a situation that kind of put them in this sort of box.
Yeah, they didn't knock over their sign.
No, they didn't knock over their sign. I guess you would have been glad to keep your sign if you would have just, stayed where it was. But okay. Number 5, such modification will not be contrary to the public interest. Now this one, I'm glad that Bethany, stated on record that we had 2 people support it and we didn't hear anybody oppose it.
Right.
Okay, and then move on to number 6 here. Such variance will not involve allowing a use not permitted under the terms of this ordinance in the district involved. Such variance will not involve allowing use not permitted. Yeah, this one's a little tricky, I think, because C1 is not allowed.
No.
But I'm also struggling with this double nose, huh?
Am I allowed to share a staff
Sure, go ahead.
perspective? I think that use versus structure is important here, because from the city's perspective, we would consider this sign to be a structure, not a use.
Okay. That's a good point.
That's just a consideration that I would like to bring forward.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So what do y'all think? Any other comments or questions?
No.
No. Well, do I have a motion to approve or deny the application? One of you needs to make the motion. One of you needs to. I don't know if I can make. I can't make the motion.
Haven't been here for a while.
Exactly. They're gonna say, did they just bring her in as a ringer? No, go ahead.
I move that we approve the, I guess, case number 2618 to allow a variance for a electronic messaging sign at the First Congregational Church. Is that sufficient?
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the application as presented. Do I have a second?
As an order of clarity, may I just ask whether you all are whether you, Connie, are recommending that the C2 regulations for those
Oh,
EMCs?
I was going to add that, but I didn't think that was appropriate for me to do.
That's what I was gonna say, do we need to put a caveat
Just
in
to
there?
amend that motion.
All right.
Can you amend your motion?
To include that
There we go.
it is based on C2
Regulations.
As, you know,
as
recommended
as
by the
recommended by the
There we
Frostburg.
go.
Yeah, I
Planning
think
and
we need that
Zoning Commission.
caveat or
Yeah, that's
come
good.
back. Okay.
Thank you for keeping us
That
in line.
having
That's the
been
first motion
said-
I've done. I'll improve with time.
That
we have a
having
second?
been clarified, I second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with the condition specified that it meets the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and second by Kitty Davis. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a quorum and it is approved, so
Moving right along.
congratulations. Thank you, Pastor Ken, for
Thank you.
following the steps in the process and being a good citizen of the city of Frostburg. We appreciate it. I just, I guess we're, at this point, we'll close out the executive session, but I did want to make two quick announcements at the end here. First, I wanted to congratulate Bethany. She has been appointed as Director of Community Development. I think it was effective June 20th, was it? So great, Bethany, I'm glad.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, and it sounds like they have a planning and zoning assistant in the works that she's really excited about onboarding, so congratulations on that. And I just want to remind those that are here and those that might be watching that our next meeting is on Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 right here. So it is earlier, so keep that time in mind. We will be hearing is it the Mountain City Liquors
Yes.
case? Okay, yeah. All right. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, carried. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Pastor Ken.